We are grading the 2022 NFL Draft. If you didn't catch yesterday's episode, we started with the NFC East. We're traveling east to west in the NFC first, then the AFC. Up today is the NFC North. The Bears, the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions. How did they do? Some interdivision trades. Multiple rare interdivision trades in this division as well in the NFL Draft. NFC North draft grades coming up right now.
You're listening to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show, your daily podcast on the National Football League, powered by the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson. Thanks for making us your first listen, by the way, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, on the Locked On NFL channel, which is the new home, the video version of our podcast. You've been seeing our lovely faces here this week for the first time. If you have never caught any of our other many podcasts and other things we're doing for a very long time, Matt, but Peacock and Williamson, long overdue. We are officially on YouTube. So those of you who listen daily with the audio only pods, maybe you want to come check it out and come hang out with us and maybe jump in on some of our live chats we're going to do as well on Peacock and Williamson. So it's been fun in week number 1 on YouTube, Matt.
Yeah, it has a little something different. You know, I need to pay attention not to pick my nose or, walk off the camera too much. I mean, that's a little foreign to me. I mean, I'm a radio guy through and through, old school podcaster. But yeah, something new and different. I'm cool with it. More interaction with the fans. I love it. The listeners.
Yeah. I'm also a radio guy. I've always been doing the audio medium. And so getting video involved, I was a little apprehensive at first. And then in the fall and into the winter, we started doing it with Locked On 49ers. I've actually had a lot of fun with the YouTube stuff. And it's really cool, just the immediacy too. And when you're able to go live on YouTube. And I think it adds a little bit extra too. You see the smirks and the smiles and maybe get the sarcasm a little bit better sometimes when you see a video version of a podcast. And it's funny because you are standing right now, clearly, correct?
Yeah, I have for the last few. I've been torn because I walk around usually when we record these without. And I have my bar stool sitting right next to me. My right hand is on it as we speak. And when I do videos like for the Steelers, they don't want you moving around. So I sit and I have it looking at me directly. But I'm more comfortable just kind of, taking a step here and there, moving around a little bit.
Absolutely. And when I do work, I have a desk that goes from sitting to standing, but when I'm recording the podcast, I'm like you, and you can even see me when I'm sitting. I'm moving around a lot. If I'm standing, I will move around so much. Like sometimes I'll do radio interviews that are on the phone, and I walk so much when I'm on the phone that I'm out of breath sometimes trying to answer questions on the radio just because I move too much. So when I'm doing the podcast, I have to keep it in sitting mode or else I'll just move too much. So we're similar in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like talking on the radio is all that difficult, and trust me, it isn't. I mean, there's a lot of ditch diggers out there that work harder than I do physically, obviously. Yeah. But your heart rate gets, racing sometimes on the radio, and you're moving around, and I'm like, I'm a little out of breath. That shouldn't be. What's going on here?
Let's talk NFL draft. Let's talk draft grades for the NFC North, and alphabetically it is the Chicago Bears to kick this thing off, and they ended up with a ton of draft picks. Matt, they started out with not that many picks, and look, these picks all came late. 2 in the second, 1 in the third, 2 in the fifth, 3 in the sixth, 3 more in the seventh. So they did a lot of trading late in the draft and got a lot of extra picks. Let's go through this. Clearly, they're not going to have a lot of star power in this draft just because they didn't have a first-round selection, and that is all based on the star power of their quarterback now, who they traded up for in the 2021 draft. And we're not really taking Justin Fields into consideration with this class. It's how did you do with what you had starting with this draft is the way I'm grading this thing. And so I'll slap a, sort of an arbitrary letter grade just because I don't know why. I don't know. I guess it's the college thing, right? I feel like the letter grade is the way you have to grade an NFL draft for some reason. You can't do you can't do 1 through 10. You got to go, A, B, C, D, or F for some reason. But I've been giving letter grades to these teams, and to be honest, when it comes to the Chicago Bears, Matt, and I'll run through the players here in their whole draft class in a second, but when you mix the draft class with what they did in free agency, I'm having a tough time seeing the vision, even though I do like some of the players they drafted.
Yes, and I think they're in a really tough spot, and I keep bringing this up. I'm going to reiterate it time and time again. This is going to be a long year for the Bears, and from what I understand, next off season they're going to be near the top of the league in free agency money to spend, cap space. It's going to be a tough one though. I mean, Bears fans hang in there, and I've mentioned several times that I'm worried what the perception of Justin Fields will be after a brutal season without much around him. And some of the reason for all this is Fields is the only first round pick this team has made in 4 years. It's hard to have a good young roster when you only have one first round pick that you've used because you trade and all those things. And it's a quarterback and you're building around him. So the big criticism of this draft, which I think is very justified, is they didn't do enough with help for Fields. And I think that's pretty clear, but I do want to get into the players.
Absolutely. And so and it's funny because all those non-first round picks that the Bears have had recently, they have one player to show for it, and it's their quarterback, Justin Fields. And they didn't do a lot to help him out because Khalil Mack is now gone. And they did get one pick back for Khalil Mack, and that turned into the Jaquan Brisker selection in round 2. So 2 second-round picks, Kyler Gordon, cornerback out of Washington, 6 feet, 194. Didn't work out great, or else he might have snuck into the first round. And see, this is where it's tough for me because I like both of their second-round picks, even though secondary wasn't really the main needs, I think, on the Chicago Bears roster, and they did need a corner, but I love the Kyler Gordon pick. It's fine, and I like the Jaquan Brisker pick maybe even more later in the second round. 6'1", 200-pound safety that can fly around. He's a leader of that really good Penn State defense. There was a ton of good players. I've watched a lot of film on that Penn State defense because I was scouting Brisker heavily, thinking he might end up a Niner late in the second round. The Niners drafted Tariq Castro Fields as well, the 6th rounder, and I loved Ebiketie, the pass rusher. There's a ton of talent on that Penn State defense, and Jaquan Brisker was one of the leaders of that defense. So I like the players, but you don't really help out your young quarterback until round 3. Velus Jones Jr. out of Tennessee, and I thought maybe he was more of a 4th, 5th round guy because of his age and his late breakout. Didn't really, kind of a non-breakout at USC and Tennessee as a 25-year-old now, even though he's got a ton of athletic ability. Braxton Jones out of Southern Utah, an offensive tackle in round 5. Dominique Robinson, another player I really like, high upside, position switch. I think he's a wide receiver turned outside linebacker, edge pass rusher out of Miami, Ohio in the 5th round. I thought that was good value for what he could potentially become as a sort of stand-up speed edge rusher. A ton of talent and raw ability there, and looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl, even though he didn't play that position a lot in college. Zachary Thomas, San Diego State, another offensive tackle in round 6. Tristan Ebner, Baylor running back in round 6. Doug Kramer, Illinois center to finish up round 6. And then 3 7th-round picks. Jatiri Carter out of Southern University, guard, safety out of Cal, Elijah Hicks, and to finish it off, a punter out of NC State, Trenton Gill. So a ton of offensive linemen, one wide receiver. So they did draft some offense, but none of it was before round 3. And I don't know if there was a ton of value there, but I kind of like the defensive picks that the Bears had, especially in the Gordon, Brisker, and Dominique Robinson selections.
I'm with you on Gordon and Brisker. I really like the players. I think they're worth that draft spot. They would be extremely welcome additions to any secondary. The only thing I can really say bad about them is they're not wide receivers, which isn't their fault. And then they do go wide receiver with the 71st pick overall on a player like you, I thought was more of a 5th rounder in Jones because of his age. And he's not exactly John Mechie route runner either. I mean, he's kind of Cordarrelle Patterson returner, get the ball in his hands, big and physical, but not a refined receiver. I don't love that fit at all. Robinson is fine. He's still a work in progress, receiver turned edge, but a good bet there at that point of the draft. Clearly, they realize that they have spots on their roster for 6th and 7th round picks, and they're going to take a bunch of bites at the apple. And I'm glad that the bites of the apple came on the offensive line. I mean, I could see Braxton Jones being a starter in this league. I think Kramer's a pretty good center prospect as well. So if they could get a starter or 2 or, someone in their top 6 or 7, maybe 2 of those guys in their top 6 or 7 offensive linemen out of these 4, that would be nice, and I think they realize where they're at. And, yeah, we can be critical that they didn't get Fields anybody, but it wasn't an easy project to take on here for the Bears.
Absolutely. And that's why I struggle with it, because they weren't going to be good if they did draft an offensive lineman and wide receiver with their first 2 picks. They're still going to be not a great team, but are they hurting their future by not helping out their quarterback a little more? If you're going to be bad, at least help your quarterback not be terrible and get him protected and get him some weapons in the passing game. And when
maybe they signed Jarvis Landry or something, at least to get him from here, A to B.
Yeah, just some veteran receivers that they know can get open and catch a football in the NFL. Kyler Gordon at 39. There's a lot of wide receivers still on the board. And even with Jaquan Brisker's selection at 48, John Mechie and Wan'Dale Robinson went off the board between those 2 picks. And then after pick 48, and this is where you start to look at things like, man, George Pickens, a couple picks later to the Steelers, Alex Pierce, Guy Moore. Those were back-to-back wide receivers that went there in the middle of the second round. And, as good as Brisker is, as much as I like him, I probably would have gone for one of those wide receivers there.
100%.
For all the reasons we had talked about.
Yep. I'm sure they'll love Brisker. He's a really good player, good
player. So you got some good players. It's just you didn't help out your quarterback. So it's a tough one to grade. No first round picks, so not a lot of star power. Even though I did like, again, some of the selections there. And you look at this is what's around Justin Fields on offense. Wide receivers are Darnell Mooney, who I like, but more of a number 2 guy.
Mm-hmm.
Byron Pringle, free agent from Kansas City. Velus Jones Jr., now the 3rd round pick, who probably will play a sort of a slot role, and he might play a lot early, and he's an older prospect, so maybe he can come in right away in week 1 and be that number 3 wide receiver, and who knows, maybe even more, because there's a lot of athletic ability there, return man as well. Equanimous St. Brown, they brought in from the Green Bay Packers, will be the next man up. Daz Newsome, David Moore, Isaiah Coulter, Simba Webster, Chris Finke, who they just signed, I believe, off the street from Kansas City, spent some time undrafted with the 49ers as well. A bunch of 6 college free agents at wide receiver. Landon Lenore,
that makes sense.
Cyrus Holder, Kevin Shea, Savon Scarver, Luke Little, Henry Litwin. These might be computer-generated names. I don't know if those are even real players. Right?
Yeah.
So that, and clearly they needed numbers, so they went out into unrestricted, or they went into undrafted free agency to bring in some competition there at wide receiver, but it's not a lot. And then you go to the offensive line. Tevin Jenkins, is he actually a left tackle in the NFL?
Injury issues too, and I mean, he's hard to trust right now.
Cody Whitehair, since being drafted in the 2nd round of 2016, has been sort of just kind of okay. Lucas Patrick,
he's probably their best guy,
and he's the best guy. Yeah. Lucas Patrick at center. They lost a free agent to the Steelers in James Daniels, who I didn't understand letting him walk and fit what they want to do there in a sort of a wide zone offense. An offensive lineman is really athletic and get out there and block. Maybe they know something that the Steelers don't about him. Dakota Dozier, Larry Borum, like that's the starting offensive line with some of those 5th, 6th, 7th round draft picks. So that
best of luck, Justin.
It's going to be a long year for Justin Fields. So for that, you can't give him a very good grade. And not having a first round pick, like C- is probably where I would go, just because, and I kind of want to give it a D, but I did like some of the players they drafted, and it was going to be a long year anyway, but I worry for Justin Fields' future.
Let's end the Bears with a slight positive note. I like their backfield, and I think Cole Kmet's a potential breakout type guy, and they need him to be. He'll be on a couple of my fantasy teams.
Yes, I should have mentioned Cole Kmet, and it wouldn't be shocking if he was their leading receiver, maybe even.
Yeah, maybe.
Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet are really the ones that you can hang your hat on. David Montgomery's been a really good running back for a while, and I loved their 6th round pick last year, Khalil Herbert. So
yes, absolutely.
I think it'd be a starting running back for them too. So I do like their running backs. And then now they add Brisker and Gordon to Eddie Jackson, Tavon Young, Jalen Johnson there. So a good young secondary for the Bears. They brought in Robert Quinn, and they got Roquan Smith still at linebacker. So some pieces on defense, but yeah. It's gonna be an interesting year for the Bears, and I'd imagine they're gonna be picking very high in next year's draft.
I would imagine.
Next, we will move along through the NFC North, get to the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings. But first, I want to tell the folks out there about Blue Nile. At BlueNile.com, you can celebrate all of life's special moments, from creating the custom engagement ring of your dreams to gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. Mark Mother's Day with something enduring, whether she prefers a statement piece or everyday subtle elegance, classic diamond stud earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, birthstone pendants, and so much more that you can find at BlueNile.com. And when you're looking for fine jewelry, but having trouble choosing, like I would absolutely be, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. So this Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Peacock and Williamson listeners will get $50 off a $500 purchase. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day. Use promo code Locked On. That is promo code Locked On through Mother's Day at BlueNile.com. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. I want to thank everybody for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen. Make sure you're checking out all the other great content going on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team is covered. We're talking NFL Draft. We're talking Dynasty Football on the Locked On Dynasty Football podcast, featuring none other than my co-host here, Matt Williamson. So check out all those shows here on the network. The Detroit Lions. What did you think about the Detroit Lions trade up and the Vikings willing to do not one, but two trades with the division in the draft? And with the Vikings going down from 12 all the way to 32. And if you look at the draft trade charts, they got value, they got numbers there. But when you look at how the draft played out, I feel like, and I'm a trade down guy, I feel like the Lions kind of won this deal. That's the vibe I get.
I thought that
but
too.
Clearly, the new
that's
front
what he
office
got for 12.
Yeah,
wow, right.
And the new front office there in Minnesota, they're a nerdy front office.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
with love. I see that in a good way.
Absolutely.
And so they're looking at. I don't care if it's the Lions. We win this based on the points, and we trust our chart. We're going down. And that's what happened in this draft. And the Lions came all the way up after drafting Aiden Hutchinson at 2 overall to select Jameson Williams, coming off a torn ACL. We'll see how that ends up going, how early he'll be able to play. Good reports from his recovery so far. Then in round 2, Josh Pascal, defensive end out of Kentucky. Really fits what Dan Campbell's trying to build there on the defensive side of the ball. Kirby Joseph, free safety from Illinois, instinctive athlete there at safety in round 3. No round 4 picks. Round 5, James Mitchell, Virginia Tech tight end. In round 6, a pair of selections, inside linebacker from Oklahoma State, Malcolm Rodriguez, and then James Houston from Jackson State, an outside linebacker. And they finish it up in the 7th round with Chase Lucas, Arizona State cornerback. What are your thoughts on this Lions draft class in 2022?
Well, it kind of dawned on me. I mean, if to use a Revenge of the Nerds, correlation here, if the Vikings are lambda, run by nerds, well, the Lions are the alpha betas with Ogre and the football players and the tough guys, and neither one. I don't care about trading in the division. I'm bigger and tougher than you. I don't care about playing in the trading division. I just want to trade down because that's the analytically thing to do. Obviously generalizations. I don't think we have to talk about Hutchinson much. I mean, it's obvious as a slam dunk. It's about the most no-brainer pick you can make. But I love that they really focused on defense in addition to Hutchinson. For people that don't know Josh Pascal, his story is even better than he is as a player, but he's a good, versatile, tough player. Multi-time captain at Kentucky, overcame a cancer situation and came back strong and played better and better after that. His story is about as easy to like as anyone's in the league. And he's also a good young prospect, too, to team with Hutchinson. They can move those guys around on the front, depending on down and distance. Kirby Joseph will take the ball away from the back end, exactly what they need. Malcolm Rodriguez is somebody coaches will like. And he's a hard guy to get off the field. I mean, he's got short arms. He doesn't have great measurables, but makes a ton of plays. He's kind of their type of guy. And then 2 late flyers on defense as well. I like the Williams move a lot. And Goff, to me, is not Sam Darnold or Drew Lock. I don't know that you had to get a quarterback type of deal in Detroit, but they're set up really well next year to do that. And by all accounts, there's going to be more to pick from. And I don't think they're going to be picking, outside the top 10 or anything. They'll be in striking distance there. So maybe it's even the Bama quarterback that you pair with Jamison Williams again. I mean, so I think Williams really completes the offense. The line was in place after Sewell last year. Hawkinson, Swift, St. Brown, Chark, and now Williams. They're all very, very different. And I'm sure people don't know a lot about James Mitchell because he missed a lot of time with injuries at Virginia Tech, but he's a really good athlete. There's traits there. He may be a solid number 2 or better going forward.
A note I love about Josh Paschal and, just a nice pairing of defensive ends there for Lions in the first couple of rounds. Paschal was the only 3-time full season captain in school history at Kentucky. So we're talking culture changers here, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're building. And we'll see if Kirby Joseph can get his hands on as many footballs as he did in college with the Detroit Lions, because that was really his calling card. And he's not really a supreme athlete or dynamic back there, but he's just smart. And he seems to always be around the football and has good ball skills. So maybe 4 starters. And when you get more than 1 starter, and you're trying to get starters usually in the rounds 1 through 3. But looking at this draft, very good chance that the Lions got 4, maybe, who knows? You get lucky too with some of the later round picks. 4 starters in this class, which is always a good class. So I've got to give this class an A-.
Yeah, I like it. I like it very much.
Next, let's talk about the Vikings side of those trades, what they ended up with on draft day, and of course, the team that's been running that division for a long time, the Green Bay Packers, who had a ton of picks coming up. At BetOnline, you can bet on whether or not Aiden Hutchinson will become Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2022. Just because the draft's over doesn't mean that there's no more betting on the NFL. There's tons of futures bets you can make, and Aiden Hutchinson does lead the list at 5-1 of the top candidates to win Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2022, followed by Kayvon Thibodeau at 6-1, Kyle Hamilton 7-1, then the Walker brothers, that I'm not sure if they're related, at 9-1. Not only football betting, but NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, and this weekend's run to the Roses at the Kentucky Derby. BetOnline remains your number 1 source for all sports wagering information, live betting, esports, and more. So get over to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Since we talked about the trades, I'm going to go out of alphabetical order, Matt. I want to go to the Minnesota Vikings first, if that's okay. And talk about what they ended up with. They started off with the 12th pick, and I dinged Washington yesterday for moving out of 11 and really having a lackluster class when they had an opportunity to maybe get a difference-making player at 11. And maybe they ended up getting a difference-making player. But I look at what the Vikings did. They moved all the way down from the very next pick, 12, down to 32, and I thought they got more impact with their first selection in Lewis Seen, who I think could be a star safety in this league, and I love the value. And when you look at, and we talked about the numbers, we just talked about a new front office doing things in a way where they are not worried as much about maybe public perception and not worried as much about where put it this way, they got a difference-making star player, and to them added value in the number of picks that they're adding to the football team, and got a player and maybe another player that hit a need in round 2 in Andrew Booth. So Seen, Booth, add talent, add impact, and if you get a Pro Bowl caliber center or a Pro Bowl caliber safety, even though maybe you didn't draft one of the top dozen players in this class at pick 12 and you added value with all the other picks, I see what they're doing. The one question I have, and this kind of is like the Bears, where the Bears, when you look at not just the draft by itself, but you look at the rest of how the team is being built, it leaves you feeling like you needed more from the class. And with the Vikings, I look at it the same way because of how many late round picks they've had. I don't think they're a team that needed volume.
Right.
I think they're a team that needed the most amount of impact players, but they at least still were able to get an impact player, in my opinion, all the way down at 32. So there's that going for them.
So quick math here. They've made 38 picks in the last 3 years before this draft and another 10 now. So they made 48 draft picks in the last 4 years. You would think you'd be fine with depth and backup safeties and, those type of guys. I guess I don't know their roster well enough, but I don't know that a lot of those guys have panned out. And it was a different, class altogether. I mean, a different group selecting, and maybe that's why they're not there. I like that they focused on defense. I mean, 5 of their first 6 picks were on that side of the ball. I thought that corner was a bigger need than safety, but I like Seam more than I like Booth, but they got both, and I think that's great. I think the guard Ingram from LSU will start sooner than later and will be a solid NFL starting run blocking type guard, fits in well. Asamoah is another, guy that's easy to like on tape, but he's small, fly around linebacker. But there's not much else from this class that I'm looking at going, boy, that could really pan out for them. Actually, one of my favorite picks, but they don't really have a need for him at the moment, is the running back, Ty Chandler. I think he's a good number 2, and maybe Madison won't be back or Cook's not long for this world. But I mean, if that's your favorite pick, that's not that exciting.
That's why you wait on running backs, Matt.
Because yeah.
It's like Ty Chandler, who's 5'11", 204, ran 4.4 flat or something like that.
Yeah, he's pretty explosive.
And you just get you can get nice players at that position group. So I like how they targeted running back late. I just don't know with the rest of these picks how much impact they're actually going to get. You just got Vidarian Lowe out of Illinois battling 9 other recent 6th and 7th round picks.
Exactly.
Maybe just volume at some point. One of those they're going to find some stuff, and maybe that's the. But
where's the diamond in the roughs? Lately, and
you're going to need some of this one. And
they
hadn't really had many of those from their last drafts, and you have to make such decisions early. You can't keep 90 men on your roster once the season starts. So you have to start cutting guys, and who knows if you cut the right guys because you don't get enough time to really look at them. So anyway,
yeah, right.
That's the Vikings draft. I'd give it, a C+ maybe. It doesn't blow me away, but I do like the Seam pick. I think Booth, aside from the injuries, was a solid value there after trading down again with the Packers, and I like the Ty Chandler pick, and Asamoah could be a player there at linebacker. So they got some players, and we'll see if any of those late round picks from recent years actually become diamonds in the rough.
Like, I don't have a big problem with Asamoah, Evans, those guys in the mid rounds, but how about a receiver that can burn? That wouldn't hurt him either.
And here's where I don't like the trade ups, because it wasn't like they traded, or the trade downs is they didn't trade just with random teams. They traded with the Lions to help them get a star player. They traded with the Packers to help them attack their biggest need and a wide receiver at pick 34. And even when you look at the value charts, depending on the chart, it was very slim win points wise. So to me, you would have had to win big, win impact, maybe get future firsts out of those types of deals rather than just getting an extra mid-round pick. So that's where I don't like the overall value in what the Vikings did. Looking at the Green Bay Packers, that was a big move for them on day 2 to be able to go up and get that wide receiver after I'm sure every Packers fan was pulling their hair out when they saw the name Quay Walker in round 1 at pick 22. After these other teams were going up, especially the team in the division, going up to get star receivers, and the Packers came out of the first round without that wide receiver, their biggest need that everybody expect them to go attack in round 1. It was Quay Walker, linebacker from Georgia at pick 22, the first linebacker off the board, and then Devontae Wyatt, his teammate, defensive tackle, at pick 28 in the first round. Then they came back and traded up with the Vikings in round 2, the second pick in round 2, to get North Dakota State wide receiver Christian Watson, and then some picks I loved. And the Packers have been
the mid rounds. Yeah.
The Packers have been so good in the mid rounds of the NFL draft, and specifically with the offensive line position. And they went out and got Sean Ryan out of UCLA and Zach Tom out of Wake Forest. Both have, interior and tackle versatility. Both played tackle in college. They might be a guard and a center in the NFL, but could definitely play out at tackle as well. And when you see names go off the board to the Packers in an area like this, and you see the traits and you see the fit, and you're like, man, the Packers are so good at this. I bet those guys are going to be starters. Maybe not year 1, but year 2, year 3, they got themselves some other really good players. They just keep doing it. And then in between those 2 offensive line selections in round 4 was Romeo Doubs out of Nevada, who's another nice little pick for them, who could be a sort of a deep weapon and a nice receiver out of Nevada that did not work out at the combine, had some injuries, and I think did run a 4.5 flat eventually, but 6'2", plays with some nice vertical speed. So they got some height and some speed at wide receiver with Watson and Dubs. Then came back with a sliding Kingsley and Igbare, super long edge rusher. Tariq Carpenter, Georgia Tech linebacker in the 7th, 4 7th-round picks. Jonathan Ford out of Miami, defensive tackle. Another offensive tackle, Rasheed Walker from Penn State, and then Samori Toure, a wide receiver from Nebraska, the 3rd wide receiver. So 3 offensive linemen, 3 wide receivers in this class in 9 picks they made? 4, 5, 6,
11
7,
actually.
9, 10, 11 picks.
4 7s, yeah.
Made on this roster. What are your overall thoughts here on the Packers? How much better did they get in this Aaron Rodgers, let's win a Super Bowl window?
For some reason, and I know the reason, because Rodgers is the great, deodorant of this league, and he makes ugly things go away. People don't talk about how bad the Packers O-line was last year. I mean, it was nearly as big a need to me, especially when you think about Bakhtiari's future as wide receiver. And I love what you said about the offensive lineman they added. Like when they took Zach Tom, I'm like, of course they took Zach Tom, and he'll be a little short, but he'll end up being the next Bakhtiari somehow. And the last one that we didn't talk about, though, was Rasheed Walker. I thought he was a 3rd or 4th round pick. They had a lot of technique work to do, but big-time tackle traits. Did he have a knee that I didn't know about? I don't know. But I bet 2 of those 3 linemen hit in very typical Packer fashion, which in itself is a great haul. Their front 7 now with the 2 Georgia dudes and their defense overall, I think it's very, very good. I mean, I think it's easy to look at the receiver deficiencies, but look how good this team is on defense on paper right now. I mean, there's stars at like every position, brand name guys that are good football players. I have no problem taking Watson at 34 for what he could become. But I actually think Rodgers might like Romeo M. Dubs even better. I mean, he's more of the route runner. He's more of the be where he's supposed to be type of guy. Like I could see Watson's learning curve aggravating Rodgers, but he's probably Valdez-Scantling from day one, big, inconsistent downfield guy. And that in itself has value, but I could just see Rodgers trusting, I know Randall Cobb's not there, but the Randall Cobbs of the worlds and the veterans more than Watson. And I could see Dubs being more NFL ready than Watson in Rodgers' eyes as well.
I would probably be crushing the Packers draft if not for what they did on day 2 and the beginning of day 3, because they did move up and attack that need. Very boomer bust in Christian Watson. I think you laid it out there well. It wasn't a high volume passing game in North Dakota State either. But he'll block. I think they probably really liked the player and trusted he's put in the work, and he's got more fluidity than Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So even though he's got that speed at 6'4" and ran 4.3s the combine, he can be, a rawer downfield guy early in his career. But I think he gives you a little bit more than that's the idea. So very boomer bust.
I hope so. Yeah.
Dubs has some kind of a boomer bust too. And so we'll see if one of those guys hit and one of the 2 offensive linemen in the 3rd, 4th round hit. And you did get 2 stud defenders, and it starts to be a pretty darn good draft class. So I'll give him a solid B based on starting with 2 firsts and 2 seconds. I think that it could have been even better, but we'll see. And this could be a class where you look back and be like, wow, they just got 2 monster defenders and they got some hits on wide receiver and offensive line. Then it looks like a really good class. It could be an A class, but a lot of boomer bust. And I probably would attack the board quite differently if I was in charge of the Packers, but we'll see if they got it right. And we'll see if Aaron Rodgers can help Watson and Dubs play up. And that'll be a huge key.
I don't have any real argument with their mid-round picks, rounds 3 through 5 here where they made, 4 picks. But there's a lot of project upside tight ends in this class. I would have liked to seen them add one of them.
That would have been nice.
Yeah. Developmental, athletic tight end.
I just
hot young tight end.
Yeah, exactly. Devontae Wyatt, the value's fine at 28. I go to Quay Walker at 22. And I think, man, you couldn't. Yeah. You had to package up one of your extra second rounders to go up in the 2nd to draft a wide receiver anyway. And there was other linebackers in this class. Like, is Quay Walker really that guy? that you couldn't utilize that extra second to move around in the first round and go attack wide receiver or go attack a different player. I just don't see the impact in the very first pick, which is why this class is held back to me. But who knows? Maybe Quay Walker is the next, Bobby Wagner in the NFL.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm not defending the pick, especially after re-signing Devondre Campbell, who really is what Quay Walker strives to be. Long, athletic, developmental linebacker. I read some of their quotes after that they thought a lot of the defensive packages we want to run we want 2 every down linebackers, and we don't feel we had that. So some of these teams, your Niners, I know my Steelers, you have to know what their thought process is, but it's pretty clear that they're going to stress that position more than others. Still, is he the 22nd best prospect in this draft? When you think about positional value, probably not.
It's really, and this is a discussion for another day. We got to wrap this one up, but it starts to become, because we've talked so much about positional value, and there's tackles and there's quarterbacks, and now wide receivers are getting paid like crazy, and there's edge rushers and some interior defensive linemen get quite a bit of money. But with the way the NFL's going, it puts a lot of stress on safeties and linebackers. And so when you look at those position groups, they're kind of more valuable now too, because you have to find a player who can do it all, who can still stop the run, because some teams are going to roll in with a fullback and want to run the ball on you. So you still have to be able to defend that, but you have to be able to cover as well. And there's so fewer players at those positions that can do both of those things really well. So does that raise the value of those position groups too? But every position in the NFL can't be a high value position.
Right.
So
the do it all guys at those positions set themselves ahead, Yeah.
And we did see a lot of linebackers at the end of the round there, a couple linebackers at the end of the first round, and a bunch of safeties in this class too. And it's funny because there's a ton of really good safeties in the NFL, but safeties are more valuable than they ever have been because of that same reason. And so it's sort of like the wide receiver conversation, where there's so many good wide receivers and so many good ones coming every year, but they're still getting paid because you still need a lot of them on the field. And so it's sort of a circular argument. So it's really fun. I don't know. That's why team building is so fascinating to me in the NFL. And it'll be fun to look back in 3 years on these draft classes and see how close we were and see who actually built the thing right.
100%. So this was fun. I assume we'll do the South tomorrow.
Yep.
I like
we'll move on to the NFC South. Let us know what you think about our draft grades for this division. What are we missing? What did we get right? At BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or leave it in the comments here on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up and the bell and all of those things. And Matt and I will be back tomorrow grading the NFC South division for the 2022 NFL draft. Thanks for making us your first listen. Talk to you tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson.